Welcome to Business Spotlight. I'm delighted today to be joined by Matt Garman. Now, Matt's a speaker. He's an authority on leadership and how our experiences influence our style of leadership. He's a well-known keynote speaker and gets to travel the world to deliver some of those. So that's very exciting, Matt. And we're going to delve into a little bit about what Matt does and why he does it and the impact that it's had on the people that he's been working with. So welcome to the call, Matt.
Hi, Gavin. Hi. Thanks. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, Matt, let's pick up on this point about experiences sort of influencing your understanding the world and your leadership. What got you interested in that as a sort of an approach to what you do?
I think, yeah. So look, I've kind of, I suppose I've had, the whole world. The word I use to describe, and probably the word people have used to describe me is unconventional. In the fact that, I kind of, I've had an unconventional background to get to where I am at the moment. But along that journey, and I kind of straddle business, growing companies, and also some kind of endurance events and some leadership around those. But one of the things that really stimulates me is where and how people accrue their leadership wisdom as much as anything else. And for me, I realise, and one of the things I speak about is so many people, whether they're leading a company or whether they're leading an expedition or an adventure, they're kind of, where do they get their knowledge from and with wisdom? And so many people for me that I speak to, it's life. It goes back to life, and it goes back to life experiences and how you interpret them and use them to lean forward.
Yeah, I mean that's a really interesting idea. Do you feel, or do you find then that some people are more able to take their experiences and learn from them? Perhaps they have more of a growth mindset, perhaps than a fixed mindset, or is this something that anybody can do if they sort of train to do so?
Uh, I think I think for me, definitely, yeah, the growth. There's a lot said about growth mindset as a kind of expression. I
Yeah,
think as much as anything else, it's an I didn't realize I didn't realize quite how much just an application and a want to learn more,
yeah.
a lifelong learner as much as anything else. I think it's good to be curious. I'm always curious. How does that work? How did that work? How did that happen there over these? And I think as much as anything else is that on constant curiosity. And then with that is it's like, oh well, I saw that, I learned this, and then that piece, can I what can I take from that, and what can I take and what can I apply to my world?
But when you're sharing these thoughts with other people, I guess some people are going to buy into it more than others. Think, oh yeah, yeah, I've done that, or I can do that, and I can take my experiences in life, and I can see how they've influenced some of the decisions, and others perhaps thinking, well, no, I haven't really got to that point yet, or that's not occurred to me, because part of your work is developing people, isn't it? I'm really fascinated that you use the term lifelong learning. It's my background as an educationalist and former head teacher before I became a coach was, um, I really appreciated when I went into teaching that um, learning is lifelong, and we're told it's not. We're told it's a box we put ourselves in between the ages of 4 and 16 or 18 for many people, which I
Yeah.
think is misleading because life is always going to be a learning experience.
Well, what was it, Mark Twain? What Mark Twain said? I never let my education get in the way of my learning, or something like that. But no, look, I think as long as I think the moment you think you've nailed it is the moment you're probably shutting your doors to new potentials and new horizons. So I was yeah, just I think just that curiosity thing. You want to learn more, and I think the other thing is that makes me curious is everyone's had their own journey, and I think and everyone's got to a stage. I was speaking in Germany last week, And we had a quick show of hands towards the end of the talk, and it's like, okay, so who's come from this background, who's come from that background, and I gave some examples of perhaps where I picked a few things up. I learned that because we had a success. I learned that because I fell horribly on my face or on my ass, and I realised that I didn't know what I thought I knew, and it's like, yeah, I learned a lot, and people smiled, and it's like, yeah, I learned that. I learned that the hard way, and sometimes. There's happiness, there's successes, there's failure, and there's sometimes there's a bit of trauma mixed in there as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, and it's sometimes the realization that sadly I had to go to that place in order to get to that place. And it's realizing that you had to get to go there to get to there, and in actual fact, maybe that was part of the journey,
Okay.
and it's what you take away from it is the depth moving forward.
So where did the journey start for you then? Can you pick a moment in your younger life where you became aware of how important your experiences were to your personal development?
Uh, that's a question, Gavin, that probably has a longer answer. But
It's,
no, look, I left. Look, I come from a very academic family,
right.
which I felt I didn't fit into, and it's not that I wasn't loved. Um, you know, I'm a middle child. Everyone's got letters after their name. My brothers suggested one or two letters after my name, which never came to fruition. And I left home at 16, and I went on my journey.
Yeah.
And I worked on a trawler in New Haven. I gutted fish. I made tea. I did what I was supposed to do. Somebody was killed on one of the boats that was next to us. Thought I needed to do something different. Couldn't
Yeah.
get a job. Stumbled into sales. Ended up growing and selling a couple of companies. So for me, I suppose as much as anything else, I've probably been dissatisfied or felt that I needed, a little bit of imposter syndrome, and it's probably spurred me on
Yeah.
probably in an uncomfortable way. But more recently, I'm kind of relaxed about the fact that we know maybe that was just the world trying to teach me a few things.
You see, amongst all of that you've just shared, there was a sentence that went somewhere along the lines of, I went into sales and I
Yeah.
grew and sold a couple of companies. Now, for many people, that's a whole life journey. And you
Oh,
just,
totally. So give it's yeah. So the only job I could get was commission only, selling life insurance. But here's the thing: it came with eight. I can't remember. It was either 8 or 10 weeks worth of training.
right.
Now, I spend time with people these days in businesses or aspiring leaders,
Yeah.
and they might not have had 8 or 10 weeks worth of training in their entire careers. So that I was very fortunate to do that. I realized I didn't particularly like life insurance, but the skills that I was being shared, and well, I'm talking to this now, and that's
Yeah.
that's 40 years on, I'm making, or 35 years on, and I'm making reference to that. So yeah, it's recognizing that every day is a school day, really, as much as anything else. But I realized, I think I think if you can sell, and I don't mean sell as in a kind of foot in the doorway, but if you're able to articulate, hold yourself up high, and explain things simply, that in itself is a real skill for probably
Yeah.
most leaders,
Yeah.
regardless of what field it is.
So what motivates you to want to help other people develop their leadership and their selling skills?
I
Because
think
it's
more,
very much a giving thing, isn't it? You're sharing your experiences, you're sharing your knowledge for others to kind of take and interpret in their own way. But what promotes you to kind of give in that fashion, would you say?
I think the realization is that for me, I mean, I did pretty well when we sold a couple of software businesses, and I kind of um, I went to a retreat last year actually with a friend of mine, and I made a realization, and through his suggestion, Mike Bates, I actually ended up writing a manifesto for myself. And I made I realized that in actual fact, I'm in the second half of my life, so I've done okay. I've got wonderful friends and family, and I enjoy hanging out with smart people that want to progress in life. And that's actually quite stimulating. And if I can help them on their journey, and I still have fun in their company, and we collectively are going in the right direction, then I find that very, very stimulating at a time when I probably want to, there's other things I want to do in my life. So it's a case of, I think, as much as anything else, is giving. Dare I say it? Sounds a bit twee. Give more than you take, and you can't be too far wrong if you do that.
Well, the phrase comes to mind, through my work as a business coach, that great leaders develop other leaders. Now, it doesn't have to be within your own organization, but if you're a great leader, then that's by your nature, or even a good leader, or aspiring to be a great leader, because it's a journey, then part of the sort of the manifesto of that, to use your words, is to help other people do the same.
Well, I'd go so far as to say that's part of the job description. Is you can lead the organization, the environment of the team that you're doing at the moment, but
Yeah.
I actually think that's, if you were to write a job description, I would say that's very much in the first few lines of the job description, is you have a responsibility. And that's the other thing, you have a responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think all too often, if I spend a bit of time with some corporates, and I'm not going to criticize per se, but too often we get stuck on job descriptions and roles, and we lose sight of people and potential. So I think we have a if you're in a leadership, you have a responsibility to keep an eye out for aspiring leaders and to develop the next generation of leaders.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And I think what you're describing there is a more of a holistic approach to building a business, where we're not just looking for somebody that fits a job description, that's got a skill set, but also has the right personality, the right motivations, the right values to be part of an organization as well. And I think those things get overlooked so often because people are so concerned, can somebody do a job, rather than perhaps in more Eastern thinking, can they be part of our team? And being part of our team.
So as an example of one of the things I speak about, so it's an example, but there's a lot said these days that there's a lack of leadership in certain businesses and companies. Many businesses I speak to are struggling. I don't subscribe to the fact that there's a lack of leadership. I actually think what we're doing is we're looking in the wrong places. What I think we're doing is we're looking for sometimes voices, as I said, jobs and roles. And in actual fact, there's people, there's people I've worked with and I've met along the way. And so, for example, I met somebody who's got somebody working in their business who volunteers at Samaritans, right? They probably know a thing or two about crisis management, right? But they're not being utilised. And I've met people that I've met a particular person, and that person teaches disabled people to climb. Okay, that person probably knows a little bit about empathy, right?
Yes.
And then there's another people I've known who've been, dare I say it, relatively quiet. And they're the kind of, I don't mean it in a derogatory term, but quite often these people are the glue of the organisation that keep it going. And I know people that run charities. There's an awful lot of work that goes into running a charity, an awful lot of leadership capability, and I just feel that sometimes too many businesses, we listen to the people that shout the loudest. Yeah. And what we need to be doing is we need to be looking across the organisation about what's the outcomes we're looking to achieve, as opposed to the roles we need to create.
You've just hinted at one of my other favourite phrases there. So we had lifelong learning, and now we've got leadership at all levels. And when I talk to businesses about leadership, they think, oh, it's the people at the top, but it's not. Leadership is a quality. It's not a position. And leadership can happen at every level within an organisation. And it's about the values that people share, and again, developing other leaders as part of their role. I think that's absolutely fascinating. Matt, I hesitate to ask this question because of the nature of your journey so far, but what's the future bring for you? What are your plans?
Well, I'm doing more speaking. I'm mentoring. I like to spend time with aspiring leaders.
Yeah.
So the kind of organisations where they've got a second in command, or they've got a second in command, or they've got somebody who has shown a lot of potential to step up into a future leadership role, or even a future director role.
Yeah.
So I like to hang around with those kind of people. Um, and then some other challenges. So I've done some physical challenges to swim to France and to row an ocean, and
Have you done? You swam the channel, have you? Or is that coming up? That's something.
I put together a team in 2017.
Right.
Put together a team. We rowed the Atlantic a couple of years ago, and this year I've got a mate of mine, and possibly another, and we're going to cycle across the USA.
All
But
right.
they're all things I want to do.
That's amazing. You're the second person I've met who's rowed the Atlantic.
All right.
What a coincidence is that? Matt Dawson was the other. I don't know if you know Matt Dawson.
Yeah, he's down in Brighton near me, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so we did that, and then I'm trying to raise a few quid for Brighton Rocking Horse charity as well, with the cycle across the states.
That's fantastic.
So,
Well,
yeah.
you've got a full-on life there, but you're sharing it and you're helping other people to develop their own as you do it, and I think that's quite admirable. So, Matt, thank you for your time today. And
no, it's great to catch up again. And it's been great to catch up.
yeah,
Appreciate the invitation.
You're welcome. Look forward
Right.
to sharing this with other people and benefiting from your wisdom. Thank you.
Cheers.